The void of space around Kepler Prime had been quiet for over 300 years. Nothing moved through the dark between stars without permission from the Zelleran Empire. Nothing dared. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his command station, watching the endless patrol routes of his fleet. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation around the fortress world. Their blue energy shields glowed like stars against the black. The Empire's most powerful weapons pointed outward, ready to destroy anything that did not belong. "Another day of peace," his second officer said. "The Empire grows stronger." Vextar nodded. He had served for 50 years and never seen a real battle. The Empire was too strong, too perfect. Every species they met either joined them or died. There was no other choice. The warning came without sound. Space itself seemed to crack open like broken glass. A tier in reality appeared directly above Kepler Prime, right in the middle of the Empire's strongest defenses. Red light poured from the wound in space, and something began to emerge. "Report!" Vextar shouted. His sensor officer's hands flew. Over the controls. "Unknown vessel emerging from." "I don't understand these readings, sir." "It's like they tore a hole in space itself." The ship that came through the tier was small, smaller than even the Empire's scout vessels. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred and burned from battles. Strange symbols were painted on its side in white letters that meant nothing to the Zellerans. USS Dakota. "Size?" Vextar asked. "Only 300 meters long, sir. Mass readings show maybe 2,000 crew at most." Vextar almost laughed. 2,000? Against our millions? He turned to his weapons officer. "Warn them once. If they do not surrender, destroy them." The human ship hung in space like a predator. It did not move toward them or away. It simply waited. Its weapons were small, primitive-looking things that stuck out from its hull like old-fashioned cannons. Its engines glowed white-hot, but they were nothing like the Empire's clean energy. "Drives. No response to our warning, sir," the communications officer reported. "Then end this," Vextar said. The first wave of interceptors launched from the nearest battle station. 50 ships, each one twice the size of the human vessel. Their energy weapons charged with blue light as they moved to surround the stranger. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Dakota, watching the alien ships approach. His crew was small. Only 37 people left from the original mission. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human before them. They had seen wonders and horrors beyond imagination, but they had never stopped moving forward. "There, trying to surround us," Commander Ryan Blake said from the tactical station. "Classic formation. They want to capture us intact." "How many?" Morrison asked. 50 ships in the first wave. Sensors show at least 1,000 more behind them. Energy signatures are impressive, but their movement patterns are textbook. They've never fought anyone who could fight back. Morrison nodded. He had studied the Empire's tactics during their long journey. Every species they conquered followed the same pattern. Overwhelming force, energy weapons, and the expectation that their enemies would surrender when faced with superior numbers. Humans were different. "Amy, send them a message," Morrison said to his communications officer. Lieutenant Amy Collins opened the channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Dakota. We seek passage through your space to reach the frontier worlds beyond. We have no quarrel with your empire." The response came quickly. The alien voice was proud and cold. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zelleran Empire. Your vessel will submit to boarding and inspection. Your crew will be processed according to Imperial law. You have no choice in this matter." Morrison looked at his crew. They were tired, hungry, and far from home. But they were human. They always had a choice. "Negative," Morrison replied. "We will continue on our course. Do not interfere with Our passage. The alien admiral's voice became angry. You face the might of the Zelleran Empire. Surrender now or be destroyed. Ryan, what's your assessment? Morrison asked. Blake studied his screens. Their ships are fast and well armed, but they're used to fighting primitives. Their formations are designed to intimidate, not to fight. They bunch up too close together. Their energy shields are powerful, but they all operate on the same frequency. Take out their command ship, and the rest will be confused. Can we do it? Against 50 ships, we shouldn't be able to. But humans have never been good at following should and shouldn't. Morrison smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then let's show them what humans do when someone tries to stop us from reaching the stars. The Dakota's engines flared brighter. The ship began to move, not away from the alien fleet, but directly toward them. Its weapons turned and locked onto targets. On the command station, Admiral Vexstar watched in disbelief. They're attacking? One ship against 50? Should we pull back our forces? His second officer asked. No, let them come. Let them see what happens when primitives challenge the Empire. The first shots came from the Empire's ships. Blue energy. Beams lanced out toward the Dakota. The human ship rolled and twisted, avoiding some shots while others struck its hull. But instead of the expected explosion, the energy seemed to slide off the ship's armor like water. Impossible, Vexstar whispered. Our weapons should have destroyed them. The Dakota's response was different. Instead of energy beams, it fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speed. The railgun rounds punched through the first interceptor's shields like they were made of paper. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. How did they do that? Vexstar demanded. Unknown, sir. Their weapons appear to be kinetic rather than energy-based. Our shields are not designed to stop solid matter at those velocities. Another interceptor died, then another. The human ship moved through the alien formation like a shark through. A school of fish. Its weapons fired continuously, each shot finding its target with deadly precision. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. Vexstar ordered, but the Dakota was already moving, diving toward the planet itself. Behind it, the alien fleet followed, their perfect formations breaking apart as they tried to keep up with the impossible maneuvering of the human ship. The Empire's defenses, built to stop massive fleets and energy weapons, found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. A single small ship, crewed by beings who refused to surrender, armed with weapons that treated their shields like they didn't exist. The age of easy victories was over. The Dakota twisted through space above Kepler Prime, leaving a trail of burning alien ships in its wake. 15 interceptors had been destroyed in the first 5 minutes of fighting. The remaining 35 had pulled back to regroup there. Perfect formation broken by the human ship's impossible movements. Lieutenant Amy Collins sat at her communication station, monitoring the alien radio channels. The fear in their voices was clear, even through the universal translator. They had never faced anything like this before. Captain, they're requesting instructions from their command, she reported. They don't know what to do. Captain Morrison stood behind her, watching the tactical display. Keep listening. I want to know everything they're saying. Commander Ryan Blake looked up from his weapons console. We've got bigger problems coming. Sensors show 3 battle cruisers moving in from the outer system. Each one is 10 times our size. Morrison nodded. He had expected this. The Empire wouldn't let a single ship embarrass them without bringing in heavier forces. How long until they arrive? 12 minutes at current speed. That gives us 12 minutes to make our point, Morrison said. He turned to Amy. Open A. Channel to their command station. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Vexstar's bridge. The alien commander looked older than Morrison had expected, with deep lines around his eyes and gray patches in his blue skin. Behind him, dozens of officers worked frantically at their stations. "Admiral," Morrison said calmly, "I believe we're having a conversation." Vexstar's expression was a mix of anger and confusion. "What are you? Your ship uses no technology we understand. Your weapons ignore our shields. How is this possible?" "We're human," Morrison replied. "We come from a world called Earth, far from here. We've traveled for years to reach this part of space. All we want is safe passage to continue our journey." Humans. Vexstar tested the word. Another primitive species that thinks it can challenge the Empire. You may have destroyed a few scouts, but you face the full might of our fleet now. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick. Morrison glanced at Blake, who shook his head slightly. "The battle cruisers. We're still 8 minutes away." "I'm afraid you don't understand the situation, Admiral. We're not here to challenge your empire. We're here to pass through it. The question is whether you'll let us do that peacefully, or if you'll keep sending your ships to die." Behind Morrison, Dr. Kevin Turner looked up from his science station. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the planet's surface. They're charging some kind of orbital defense system." "What kind of system?" Morrison asked. "Planet-killing class?" Turner replied quietly. "Whatever they're planning to use, it's designed to destroy entire fleets." Morrison looked back at the screen. "Admiral, I strongly advise against using your planetary weapons. You'll only make the situation worse." Vexstar's eyes narrowed. "You threaten us? One ship against an entire world?" "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm trying to save lives. Your ships can't hurt us, and your weapons won't work the way you think they will. Let us pass, and no one else has to die." "Impossible," Vexstar said. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. You will surrender or be destroyed." The channel closed. Morrison turned to his crew. "Well, we tried the diplomatic approach." Chief Engineer Lisa Martinez's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, we're running hot down here. The reactor's stable, but we're pushing it pretty hard. I can give you full power for maybe another hour before we need to cool down." "Understood, Lisa. How are our weapons?" "Railguns are functioning normally. We've got plenty of ammunition. The fusion torpedoes are ready to go, but we only have 6 of them left." Morrison nodded. The Dakota had been designed for exploration, not warfare. But humans had always been good at adapting their tools to new situations. "Ryan, analysis of those battle cruisers?" Blake studied his screens. "They're older designs, but heavily armed. Massive energy weapons, thick armor, and shields. That should be able to stop our railguns." "Should be the key words there? You think we can take them?" "Honestly, no. They're too big, too well protected. But they're also slow and predictable. If we can get close enough, we might be able to do some damage before they destroy us." "Doctor." Carol Price looked up from her medical station. "Captain, we have 7 wounded from the last engagement. Nothing serious, but if we keep fighting like this, we're going to start taking casualties." Morrison considered their options. The Dakota could probably outrun the battle cruisers, but that would mean abandoning their mission. Humanity had sent them to explore the galaxy, to find new worlds beyond the reach of Earth's dying sun. Turning back now would doom their entire species. "Amy, any change in their communications?" "They're getting more organized," she reported. "The battle cruisers are coordinating with the planetary defenses. They're planning to trap us between them." Morrison made his decision. "Then we don't let them trap us. Ryan, prepare the fusion. Torpedoes. Lisa, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Carol, get ready for combat casualties. Amy, keep monitoring their channels." The Dakota's engines flared brighter as Lisa pushed the reactor to its limits. The ship began to accelerate toward the approaching battle cruisers, its small size allowing it to move far faster than the massive alien vessels. "Captain, what are you doing?" Vexstar's voice came over the radio. "You're flying directly into our guns." "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense," Morrison replied. "Your people have controlled this space for centuries. You've forgotten what it's like to fight someone who fights back." The first battle cruiser opened fire when the Dakota was still 50,000 kilometers away. Massive energy beams lanced out across space, each one capable of destroying a city. The human ship rolled and twisted, avoiding the slow-moving shots with ease. "Their gunners are used to fighting targets that can't maneuver," Blake observed. "They're not leading their shots properly." The Dakota closed the distance quickly, its railguns firing continuously. The solid metal rounds struck the battle cruiser's shields and bounced off, just as Blake had predicted. But Morrison wasn't trying to destroy the ship. He was studying it. "Turner, what do you see?" The science officer's instruments were working. "Over time, the shields are rotating frequencies, trying to adapt to our weapons, but they're still energy-based. They're designed to stop other energy weapons, not kinetic rounds." "And the hull?" "Composite metal and ceramic. Strong, but not designed to handle point-blank impacts from solid projectiles." Morrison smiled. "Ryan, prepare torpedo launch. Target the shield generators." The Dakota dove toward the battle cruisers. Hull skimming along its surface at a distance of only a few hundred meters. The alien ship's defensive turrets tried to track the small vessel, but it was moving too fast and too close for them to get a clear shot. "Torpedo away," Blake reported. The fusion torpedo struck the battle cruiser's shield generator and detonated. The explosion was small by space warfare standards, but it was perfectly placed. The shield flickered and died. "Shield generator destroyed," Turner reported. "Hull is exposed. All railguns, concentrated fire on the engine section," Morrison ordered. The Dakota's weapons hammered the unprotected hull with solid rounds, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The battle cruiser's armor, designed to stop energy. Weapons cracked and shattered under the kinetic assault. The massive ship began to list as its engines died. Emergency lights flickered along its hull as internal systems failed. "One down," Blake said. "Two to go." But the other battle cruisers had learned from their companions' fate. They were spreading out, trying to catch the Dakota in a crossfire. And on the planet's surface, the massive orbital defense system was finally ready to fire. "Captain," Turner called out. "Energy spike from the planet. They're targeting us." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Dakota was fast, but it couldn't outrun a planet-killing weapon. "All power to engines. Take us into the planet's atmosphere." "Sir?" Blake looked confused. "They won't fire their superweapon if we're over their own cities. Sometimes the best place to hide is right under your enemy's nose." The Dakota dove toward Kepler Prime, its hull glowing from atmospheric friction. Behind it, the remaining battle cruisers followed, their massive forms struggling to keep up with the human ship's desperate maneuvers. The real battle was just beginning. The Dakota screamed through Kepler Prime's atmosphere, its hull glowing white-hot from the friction. Below them, the Empire's capital city stretched out like a glowing circuit board, millions of lights marking the centers of power and industry. Hull. "Temperature is approaching critical levels," Chief Engineer Lisa Martinez reported from the engine room. "We can't stay in atmosphere much longer." Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as the two remaining battle cruisers followed them. Down. And massive ships were struggling with the atmospheric flight, their designs meant for the vacuum of space. "How much longer can we push it?" "Maybe 10 minutes before we start losing hull integrity," Lisa replied. "After that, we're going to start coming apart." Commander Ryan Blake studied the pursuing ships. They're having trouble too. Their engines are overheating. If we can stay ahead of them for another few minutes, they'll have to pull back. Dr. Kevin Turner looked up from his science station. Captain, I'm detecting something else. The planets. Defense system is still tracking us, but they're not firing. I think you're right about them not wanting to hit their own cities. Morrison nodded. The Dakota skimmed over the alien metropolis, staying low enough that any orbital weapon would risk destroying the buildings below. It was a desperate gamble, but it was working. Amy, are you picking up any communications from the surface? Lieutenant. Amy Collins adjusted her equipment. Yes, sir. They're arguing among themselves. Some want to evacuate the city and fire anyway. Others are demanding we be captured alive for study. Good. Keep them arguing. Morrison turned to Blake. What's the status on those battle cruisers? They're starting to pull back. The atmosphere is too thick for their engines. Blake paused. But Captain, we have a new problem. Sensors are showing smaller ships launching from the surface. Atmospheric. Fighters. Morrison looked at the display. Dozens of small craft were rising from the planet's surface, their sleek shapes designed for flight in both space and atmosphere. They were fast, maneuverable, and numerous. How many? At least 60, with more launching every minute. They're trying to surround us. Dr. Carol Price looked up from her medical station. Captain, we have 3 crew members with minor burns from the atmospheric entry. Nothing serious yet, but if we keep this up, we're going to have more casualties. Morrison weighed their options. The Dakota couldn't stay in atmosphere much longer, but going back to space would mean facing the battle cruisers again. And now they had 60 atmospheric fighters to deal with as well. Lisa, how's our reactor holding up? Running at 90% capacity, came the reply. I can give you full power for another 30 minutes, but after that we'll need to reduce output or risk a containment breach. Understood. Morrison made his decision. Ryan, prepare for emergency ascent. Target the nearest battle cruisers. Weapon systems. If we're going back to space, we're going to make it count. The Dakota's engines roared to full power as it climbed out of the atmosphere. The atmospheric fighters followed, their weapons firing streams of energy that lit up the sky like deadly fireworks. They're faster than the interceptors, Blake reported, and their weapons are more powerful. But they're still using energy weapons, Turner observed. Same principles as the others. Morrison watched as the first energy beams struck the Dakotas. Hull. The ship's armor absorbed most of the damage, but some shots were getting through. How long until we reach the battle cruisers? 2 minutes at current speed. Amy, send a message to the surface. Tell them we're not here to destroy their world. We just want to pass through. The reply came quickly, transmitted on all frequencies. It was Admiral Vextar's voice, but now there was something else in it. Not just anger, but a growing concern. Human vessel, you have demonstrated capabilities beyond our understanding. Your weapons ignore our shields. Your ship moves in ways that should be impossible. What are you? Morrison considered his response. The truth was that humanity had developed along different lines than the Empire. Where the Zellerans had focused on energy manipulation and mass production, humans had perfected the art of kinetic warfare and individual initiative. We're explorers, Admiral. We've traveled far from our home to find new worlds. We've learned to adapt our technology to face any challenge. Your empire is powerful, but it's also predictable. Predictable? Vextar's voice was sharp. Your tactics, your formations, your weapons, they're all designed to fight enemies who use the same technology you do. You've never faced someone who approaches warfare differently. The Dakota broke through the atmosphere and immediately came under fire from the 2 battle cruisers. But Morrison was ready for them. The human ship rolled and twisted, its small size allowing it to dodge between the massive energy beams. "Target their sensor arrays," Morrison ordered. "Blind them." The Dakota's railguns fired in rapid succession, sending solid rounds at the battle cruiser's sensor clusters. The metal projectiles punched through the protective housing, destroying the delicate equipment inside. "First cruiser is firing blind," Blake reported. "Second cruiser is trying to compensate." "Then let's give them something to compensate for. Fire fusion torpedo at the second cruiser's bridge." The torpedo streaked across space, its nuclear warhead detonating against the battle cruiser's command section. The explosion was tremendous, tearing through armor and hull plating like paper. Direct hit. Second cruiser is losing power. But the victory was short-lived. The atmospheric fighters had caught up, and now they were swarming around the Dakota, like angry insects. Their energy weapons hammered the human ship from all sides. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, Lisa reported. "Emergency containment fields are holding, but we're taking damage. Medical teams to damage control," Carol announced. "We have casualties." Morrison felt the ship shudder under the assault. The Dakota was tough, but it wasn't designed to fight. 60 opponents at once. "Turner, any ideas?" The science officer studied his readings. "The fighters are using a networked targeting system. They're all linked to a central command ship. If we can take out the command ship, the rest will be confused." "Where is it?" "There." Turner pointed to a larger craft hanging back from the main fight. "It's directing the others." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The command ship was positioned behind the swarm of fighters, protected by its own escorts. Getting to it would mean fighting through the entire enemy formation. "Ryan, can we make it?" Blake ran the calculations. "It's going to be close. We'll take heavy damage, but we might be able to break through." "Do it." The Dakota suddenly accelerated, diving straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Fighters scattered as the human ship plowed through them, its railguns firing continuously. Several alien ships exploded as the solid rounds tore through their hulls. "They're trying to box." "US in," Blake warned. "Then we don't give them the chance." Morrison grabbed the ship's controls. "Lisa, give me everything you've got." The Dakota's reactor pushed past its safety limits as the ship executed a series of impossible maneuvers. It rolled, twisted, and dove through the enemy formation like a living thing, its pilot's instincts guiding it through the chaos. The command ship grew larger on the screen. Its escorts moved to intercept, but they were too slow. The Dakota fired its last fusion torpedo at point-blank range. The explosion lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, the command ship was gone, and the remaining fighters were flying in confused circles, their coordination broken. "All enemy ships are pulling back," Blake reported. "We did it," but Morrison wasn't celebrating yet. On the tactical display, new contacts were appearing. Ships were arriving from across the Empire, responding to the distress calls. Hundreds of them. "Amy, what are they saying?" "They're calling for reinforcements from every system in the Empire," she reported. "This isn't over, Captain. It's just beginning." Morrison looked at his crew. They were tired, wounded, and far from home. But they were still human. They still had fight left in them. "Then we better get ready for round 2, he said. "Because something tells me the Empire is about to learn what happens when you really make humans angry." In the distance, space itself began to shimmer as more ships dropped out of hyperspace. The battle for Kepler Prime was far from over. The Dakota limped through space, its hull scarred and blackened from the battle. Emergency repair crews worked frantically to patch the holes in the outer armor while Dr. Carol Price tended to the wounded in the medical bay. "Casualty report?" Captain Morrison asked. 12 injured, none critical," Carol replied over the intercom. "But we're running low on medical supplies." If we keep taking damage like this, I won't be able to help everyone. Morrison nodded grimly. The Dakota had won the first round, but it had cost them. They were alone in hostile space, thousands of light years from home, facing an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds. Ryan, what's our tactical situation? Commander Ryan Blake studied the long-range sensors. Not good, sir. I'm counting. At least 200 ships converging on our position. They're coming from every direction. 200? Morrison felt a chill. What kind of ships? Everything they've got. Battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers, support vessels. This isn't just a local response anymore, Captain. They're bringing their entire fleet. Lieutenant Amy Collins looked up from her communications station. Sir, I'm picking up transmissions from across the Empire. They're calling this the greatest threat they've ever faced. Morrison almost laughed. One ship is the greatest threat they've ever faced? It's not just about the ship, sir, Dr. Kevin Turner said from his science station. It's about what we represent. They've built their entire empire on the idea that they're superior to everyone else. We've just proved them wrong. Chief Engineer Lisa Martinez's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I've got the reactor stable again, but we're running on fumes here. Fuel reserves are down to 30%. If we keep fighting at this intensity, we'll be dead in space within 6 hours. Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Empire's ships were forming a massive sphere around their position, cutting off all escape routes. How long until they're in weapons range? 20 minutes for the fastest ships, Blake replied. The main fleet will be here in an hour. Morrison considered their options. The Dakota couldn't outrun the Empire's fleet, and they couldn't outfight 200 ships. But humans had always been good at finding third options. Amy, are you still monitoring their communications? Yes, sir. They're coordinating through a central command structure. Everything goes through the flagship. Which ship is that? Turner's. Instruments lit up with new data. The Eternal Dominion. It's massive, Captain. 10 kilometers long, crew of 50,000. It's their most advanced warship. Morrison studied the sensor readings. The Eternal Dominion was more than just a warship. It was a mobile city, a symbol of the Empire's power and technological superiority, and it was coming straight for them. Who's in command of that ship? According to the transmissions, Emperor, Zelmuth himself, Amy reported. He's taken personal command of the fleet. Morrison felt a grim satisfaction. Good. When you want to make a point, you go straight to the top. The first wave of enemy ships arrived right on schedule. Fast attack cruisers, smaller than the battle cruisers, but still larger than the Dakota. They spread out in a wide formation, trying to box in the human ship. 12 ships in the first wave, Blake reported. They're being more cautious this time. They're learning, Morrison observed. That's not good for us. The attack cruisers opened fire from long range, their energy weapons creating a web of deadly light around the Dakota. But Morrison had learned too. Instead of trying to dodge all the shots, he flew the ship in a spiral pattern, using the aliens' own weapons against each other. They're hitting each other, Blake said with amazement. Their shots are crossing paths. Energy weapons are predictable, Morrison replied. They fire in straight lines at the speed of light. If you can predict where they're going to shoot, you can use that against them. The Dakota's railguns fired back, picking off the attack cruisers one by one. But Morrison wasn't trying to destroy them all. He was studying the Empire's new tactics, learning how they adapted to human warfare. They're using hit-and-run tactics, Turner observed, trying to wear us down instead of overwhelming us. Smart, Morrison admitted, but it won't work. Amy, send a message to the Eternal Dominion. Tell Emperor Zelmuth that I want to talk. The response came quickly. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a massive dreadnought. Emperor Zilmuth was tall and imposing, his blue skin marked with the scars of old battles. His eyes were cold and calculating. "I am Emperor Zelmoth of the Zelleran Empire," he said in a deep voice. "You have killed thousands of my people. You have humiliated my fleet. You will surrender now, or I will personally ensure your destruction." Morrison met the Emperor's gaze steadily. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Dakota. We've killed your people in self-defense. We've humiliated your fleet because it was overconfident. And we won't surrender because that's not what humans do." Zelmuth's expression darkened. "You speak of humans as if you are something special. You are primitives with primitive weapons. You may have surprised us once, but we adapt quickly. Do you?" Morrison asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're making the same mistakes over and over again. You're still thinking like an empire that's never faced real resistance. And what would you know about real resistance?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Everything. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've perfected the art of warfare against opponents who think like us, who use the same technologies. We do. Your empire has been fighting primitives for so long, you've forgotten what real war looks like." Behind the Emperor, Morrison could see the alien officers working frantically at their stations. The main fleet was almost in position, hundreds of ships forming a crushing wall of firepower. "You will have your war," Zelmuth said, "but it will be short. No single ship can stand against the combined might of the Empire." "You're right," Morrison agreed. "No single ship can. But we're not just any ship. We're human." The channel closed. Morrison turned to his crew. "Positions, everyone. The real fight is about to begin." The Eternal Dominion emerged from hyperspace like a moving mountain. Its hull was covered in weapon emplacements, shield generators, and armor plating thick enough to stop a nuclear missile. Behind it came the rest of the Empire's fleet, a wall of ships stretching across space. "Energy readings are off the charts," Turner reported. "That ship has more firepower than some planets, and it's all focused on us," Blake added. "Captain, I don't think we can win this one." Morrison looked at his crew. They were scared, exhausted, and facing impossible odds. But they were still at their stations, still ready to fight. "Maybe not, but we can make them remember us." The Dakota's engines flared to life as Morrison pushed the ship toward the enemy fleet. Behind them, the last few attack cruisers followed, trying to herd the human ship into the killing ground. "Lisa, give me everything you've got," Morrison called out. "Reactors at maximum," came the reply. "But Captain, at this rate, we'll burn out in minutes." "Then we better make those minutes count." The Dakota accelerated toward the Eternal Dominion, its small form dwarfed by the massive dreadnought. Every weapon in the Empire's fleet trained on the human ship, waiting for the order to fire. "Amy, send one last message to the Emperor," Morrison said. "Tell him this is what happens when you try to stop humans from reaching the stars." The message was sent. The Empire's response was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship in the fleet opened fire at once, creating a storm of energy that lit up space like a star. But the Dakota was no longer where they expected it to be. Morrison had learned one final lesson from the Empire's tactics. Sometimes the best way to win is to do something so crazy that your enemy can't predict it. The human ship dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation, heading directly for the Eternal Dominion's bridge. Behind it, the Empire's own weapons crossed paths, hitting their own ships in the confusion. "They're firing on each other," Blake shouted over the noise. "Their formation is breaking apart," Morrison smiled. "Then let's give them something else to worry about." The Dakota's last fusion torpedo armed and ready. Target locked. The Eternal Dominion's massive bulk filled the screen. "Fire," Morrison ordered. The torpedo streaked toward the dreadnought's bridge, carrying with it the hopes of humanity and the fury of a species that refused to be stopped. The explosion would be seen across the Empire, and in that light, the galaxy would learn that humans had arrived among the stars. The fusion torpedo struck the Eternal Dominion's bridge section like a hammer blow from the gods. The explosion tore through the dreadnought's armor, sending fragments of metal spinning into space like deadly confetti. Emergency lights flickered across the massive ship's hull as internal